All right, Q2UA, we're here. We're here. We're here, chat. Get them likes up, share, sub. We're here, chat. I'm gonna have to take a page from I Show Speed's uh, playbook. Every Friday, I live stream and do some craziness to get everything here, chat. Oh yeah, that would be great. We would definitely be able to get our goals met for these projects and initiatives. Well, shalom and salama, everyone. Greetings. Welcome. This is Q2A Discussions Live. Q2A Discussions Live, where we discuss things that's affecting the African continent as well as the African diaspora, especially here in the United States, that is taking a big it's having a big toll. And these tolls are things that we are witnessing, and it's affecting us all around the world. Sorry, give me a second. I was thinking about, I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go on. Um, Not feeling very well at all. Oh my goodness, give me a second. And so there are some things that you have to listen to your body about, because if you try to overwork yourself, you're going to hurt. And that's where I had to be very mindful of making sure that we're here in some interesting times, and we have put in the work for now almost 3 years now, over 32 months and counting. And the Most High gave us the opportunity to literally see how this was going in, or how this was working. And we had to be mindful of everything, because the way that this was going, no one had any idea or clue what this would look like. I certainly didn't. But I'm glad and I'm hopeful that we've done what we needed to do to be able to be impactful, even if it's just a container. That was an impact. That was impactful. That was an impact. That impact is something that it may not necessarily be what we would like it to be. However, it is pretty interesting to see where this trajectory is headed. And I say all that to say this. The continent is doing very well. Shalom, brother Fast Nickel. Fast Nickel and I had a great conversation earlier this week, and we have been able to get some videos up and going. I will be sharing more of that. We do have a Zoom meeting this Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a Zoom meeting. That will be our basically our year in review Zoom meeting of what we've accomplished and where we intend to go. And we are excited to see all of the opportunities that the Most High has opened up for this organization. We have a little bit of a restructure going on. There's some additions that we've had, including to our board. And I just want to make sure that we formally um, have that provided so then we can go and start to move forward. This time, this is a calendar year, but this is technically the end of the year for our biblical calendar, the Hebraic calendar. And this is the time of the year where you now have different policies and things going on that start to affect things worldwide. And you can understand that right now when you're looking at the White House canceling the visas or excuse me, suspending visas for 75 countries. 75 countries. Now, people would say, why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because that's a reciprocation of what you will have with these countries. So if they're going to suspend visas, then guess what? Those visas there will be suspended. And, one of the things that I saw and I noticed, and I want to go here. Let me put this article in the chat. I want to also bring this up. If I can get through all these advertisements. Sorry. My goodness. There we go. U.S. suspending visa process for 75 countries. This is by Jennifer Hansler over at CNN News. And it says the United States is indefinitely suspending immigrant visa processing from 75 countries and another expansion of the Trump administration's cracking down on immigration. The pause in processing will apply to country two countries including Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Haiti, Somalia, and Russia. The suspension applies to immigrant visas such as for those for employment or to join family in the U.S. This pause does not apply to non immigrant visas like student and tourist visas, and as such, would not apply for those seeking to travel to the World Cup in the U.S. this summer. All right, so one of the things that I noticed here is Egypt. Yes, Egypt is also on the African continent. It is also on the African continent. Now, the reality is this: it's very interesting because as you see things going on in Egypt, it's really interesting. And I'm going to tell you what ended up happening this week, which was a very big diplomatic flex. This is the one thing I had to talk about before, involving all others. On Covenant Awakenings, obviously, I've been ranting. I wouldn't say ranting. I've been more raving about I Show Speed and how he has literally destroyed the concept of really Eurocentric propaganda and the negative bias that it was producing on the African continent. So much so that I was talking to a one of our family members, and she's over in the UK without saying many words. And we had this discussion, and she was talking to me about a Caucasian imitator. And the imitation wasn't the imitation of flattery, it was actually the imitation of trying to prevent the deconstruction of the Eurocentric framework and paradigm of the African continent. And so much so that you had the paid folks that was going on in there trying to say that trying to create the bubble again. The bubble bursted, but let me try to create this bubble again. And that didn't work. It hasn't worked. And the over I think he's collected so far over like 3 million extra subscribers. Because why? Because I'm sorry, that to me, I've seen some stupid things with I Show Speed and it kind of turned me off. And I wasn't really, looking at that like that. But when Yakoba had said, "Hey, have you seen what's going on with I Show Speed?" I was ignorant. I said, "No, I have not." And then when he was starting off his tour in South Africa and other places, and when I finally caught up to him in Rwanda and over in Kenya, I said, "Oh, this is the truth." And these are hotspot areas. They're hotspot geopolitical areas. And if you have just a little bit of positive imaging, that creates all of the literal political shift in dynamics, not when it comes to the US, but when it comes to the African diaspora. Believe it or not, we have a political dynamic. But we don't want to say that we do, but we do. I'm sorry, we do. We're a political demographic within a political demographic. That's how that is. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe that, then why does the African Union have the sixth region, which is the African diaspora? Why does Ghana have now the 17th region, which is the African diaspora? You now purportedly, and I'm still getting clarification on this, but I saw that Benin is offering citizenship to the African diaspora. I'm not sure if it's citizenship or actual permanent residency. That's why I needed to make sure that I was aware of that. But I just want to highlight that these are key changes that's happening on the continent right now. And it's awesome to see that the journey that we have been on at Q2UA, don't think that we don't have a big representation. Showing up to these places creates the actual catalyst just to be present, just to show up. On the Q2A.org website right now, there's the land acquisition project that we're doing. It is a time sensitive project. We're trying to collect funds as soon as possible. It is a hefty goal. But what that goal provides is for land to be acquired for a hospital to be built on it. Couple dozen acres of land. And the hospital is just the first phase. And you know what the biggest impact and the intent is for that? Is literally just to have presence. As I sat down to meet with that king, which is located about an hour and a half north of Accra, it's in a beautiful area full of mountains and hills and waterfalls. It looks like Wakanda. I had spoken to Brother Asaph, and Brother Asaph had said, you know what, Brother Karras, those people there, that region, because I was giving them more detail. Sorry, I can't give you any more detail than this on YouTube. Excuse me for the snorts. It's very cold here in Tampa. We're below freezing even as I'm speaking. Sorry. My body is going through a little bit of a shock. So please excuse me. I'll try to limit that. But I stood up in front of the king and the elders. And I said, this is a project of many to come. And this project will allow us to be present. This project will allow us to build together. And this project will allow us to expand together. And let me tell you how they reacted. They were ecstatic. And they were more excited than I was to make that connection, to build that connection, because when you understand that that is our people that we had been separated from, you feel the connection. There's one thing in being present and feeling the presence of our people. Because when you feel the presence of our people, guess what? It's genuine. There's a genuine love. And I laugh because when I see I Show Speed on out there and how he is literally destroying every single framework, every single paradigm, every single straw man, every single ad hominem or hominem, ad populist attack that's on out there to say, no, these are our brothers and sisters and they love us and they want us to come home. And you're hearing it from their voices, you're hearing it from their mouths. That's destroying a paradigm. Why? Why is that so important? Because we just saw earlier this week that China had a record trade plus or surplus. That's a big deal. Why is that a big deal? Because what they don't mention, especially here within the United States, is that China's able to have this record surplus because they're doing business on the continent, mainly. Mainly. This is from China's trade surplus surges. This is from AP. China's surplus surges 20% to a record 1.2 trillion, even with Trump's tariffs. Come on. This is a container at this port. You know, I'm going to tell you, that is huge. That is huge. That's showing you they're going worldwide. From Chan Ho Hin. Hong Kong, China's trade surplus surged to a record of almost 1.2 trillion in 2025, the government said on said Wednesday as exports to other countries made up for slowing shipments to the U.S. under President Donald Trump's onslaught of higher tariffs. China's exports rose 5.5% for the whole of last year to $3.77 trillion. These folks are making money. What are they doing? They're exporting out to the continent. You want to know why? Because I saw that with my very own eyes. Let me put this on in here. Let me come in here. Because now you're going to start to see this is awesome. And understand these are gaps that we can easily fill. While China's exports to the U.S. fell sharply after Trump's return to office and escalated his trade war with the world's second largest economy, that decline has been largely offset by shipments to other markets in South America, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe. Now here's it. Here's this right here. For the whole of 2025, China's exports to the U.S. fell 20%, and we felt that. In contrast, exports to Africa surged 26%. 26%. And I saw that with my very own eyes. So wait a second. If it's surging 26%, well, that is a very hefty monetary mark. You're telling me that out of that $1.2 trillion, we could safely assume that 26% of it came from Africa, 26%, over a quarter. That's over $300 billion. I'm just breaking down these numbers to you. Think about how that is. Think about the numbers. But they said that Africa's poor. No, it's not. Africa has trillions of dollars worth of wealth that they'll never tell you how much they have. Because you want to know why? Because they hide those off the books. Just like they hide off the books how much gold that JP Morgan Chase has, or excuse me, silver JP Morgan Chase has. Because these folks are on out there buying up all of the commodities. They have gold and silver, cobalt, cadmium, you name it. All of these other minerals reserves, copper, nickel, you name it, over on the continent. And for this one example, over in, I believe, Kinshasa. Oh, no, not Kinshasa. Kumasi. And Kinshasa. Kinshasa's DRC. Could be arguing both. They have a gold reserve or gold mine that they have been mining for over 120 years. Can you believe that? They've been mining for over 120 years. What that means is they haven't even tapped it. And do you understand that they want us back? They want us back so they are able to fairly manage their resources. Because I can tell you, when they did do that deal over 120 plus years ago, that was called gun to the head diplomacy. Yeah, it's there on paper, but they supposedly have reserves. I still don't know. I still believe that there's still a ton of arbitrage. And you also have to remember they're going to have all of these disclaimers on out there because, to be quite honest, they don't want to put people in a panic. Don't worry, we have all these silver reserves, supposedly. We'll see. And remember, if they can't pull that, then guess what they do? Then guess what they do? They start pulling reserves from smaller regional banks. That's how this works. The smaller regional banks fail because the bigger banks are the ones backstopping them. So the bigger banks will then pull funds from the smaller banks. So smaller banks then go down. This is why they'll say, oh, this bank has failed. Because why? Because they'll put in the memo, hey, you got less than 90 days to get my money. Uh-oh, we can't. Time to put into the FDIC and get money on the, get pennies on the dollars for deposits. And oh, all of a sudden deposits are all going to a big bank. That's how that goes. And Cynthia, you are absolutely correct. She says, I've heard that they've only tapped about 10% of the resources after all these years. That is true. After hundreds of years, and that's all they can do. Right now, the bridge that is going to the continent that's being built, this is happening. And it's happening in front of our very own eyes. It's not happening at the breakneck pace and speed that we believe we would like for it to happen, but it's happening surely, steady but surely. And because it's happening, you're now seeing a lot of exposure going on because now these European nations are getting sloppy. They're getting sloppy with the assassination attempts. They're getting sloppy with these change of regime change programs and operations. And now, so much so, I'm going to tell you that understand all of this stuff breeds desperation. And when you're doing things in a desperate manner, you're going to see a lot of crazy things happening. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and Puchna says, Brother Karras, do you believe the Chinese figures, they often manipulate them, correct? Yeah, they often do, but I don't see any um, reason that they actually would manipulate it because clearly they have had a lot of trade deals, and that's what I said. I've been on the continent, so when you see a lot of the Chinese on over there, and you see and you're talking to the people on the ground, showing you and telling you about the amount of influx that was happening. Remember, I was on the ground in September, and I was asking these questions, and I was seeing this face to face. And that trade and that surplus, absolutely. Because you're able to see a lot of the economic boom that was happening because a lot of buildings are being built on out there. And I'm like, how old are these buildings? Oh, they're only about 3, 4, 5 months old. Wow. They're going ham with literally trying to build into Africa as quick and as soon as possible. It's a give and take. Yeah, and Sean, you're right. All nations do manipulate their currency. They actually do. However, in the case of the United States, the currency manipulation isn't as viable anymore because you don't have a lot of other countries playing along with the manipulation game, right? They'll just say, nope, no, our trades, our stuff is down. Okay, so who's telling the truth? Yeah, and Sister Pamela, yep, you are on the ground right now in Senegal, and yes, they're not playing around. It's a it's an African blitz, and the blitz is on so much so that Rudo. Ruto was getting pressured by the West to suspend a $1 billion trade agreement, trade deal. All that's going to do for Kenya is just make Kenya poorer than it already is. They don't want the trade deals because they want to continue to be indebted to the IMF. And if you've noticed, Ghana and now AES and even some more African countries are saying, why do we need the IMF? Y'all owe us money. This is going to be that turnaround pivotal moment this year. Why do I owe you money? You stole our people and you stole their labor. Get out of here with that. See, it's going to be funny because mark my words, this year you're going to see a lot of the tables turn on all of these quote unquote Western organizations. You need to pay us. I'm not paying you a dime, Jack. You better get out of my face with all that noise. Nah, they're turning the tables. You want to say that we owe you money? Money that you stole from us? No. Let's readjust this position because I don't think you truly understand the position you're in. And that is the reality for them. Come on, subs. We got to get them subs on up there. Come on, chat. Like, share, subscribe, chat. Give Africa a W, chat. We can do it, chat. We can do it. Let's get our numbers up, chat. You know, it's going to take time. It's going to take trust. But when you are a value add, guess what? People will want to have you around. Of course, you're a resource. You're a resource. Excuse me. You're a resource. And they'll know that when as we're all winning, they're winning too. So we are in a really good position here. We're in a better position again, as I told you. We're starting to understand how we are positioned and our positioning that quite truly they don't want us to understand the power dynamic that we have. Because the question is, why would they want us to understand that power dynamic? When we are a subgroup that is now being recognized on the continent. And what they're afraid of is they don't want that subgroup being recognized outside of the African continent. Oh, you all are the African diaspora. Oh, yeah. Because why? Because now you're starting to see what that looks like. And it's not a negative connotation. You know what that is? When they should see I show speed, they actually see hope. They actually see a future. They actually see, wow, how many energetic Negroes are going to be doing backflips coming over to the continent, doing push-ups coming over to the continent, doing push-up or pull-ups. That's a big deal. before I go, I had to. I didn't get much of a chance to see I Show Speed yesterday. He was in Egypt, and I have to laugh because all the places in Egypt are the places I've been to. When he was at the Great Pyramid, I did miss out on the museum. I wanted to go to the museum. They built a newer museum. It wasn't finished yet. It wasn't finished yet. They literally had just started construction. But a lot of YouTubers and TikTokers are seeing the when he was asking why are the noses missing on the statues. And you know, the reality is when you read the accounts of Voltaire that they don't like to actually bring on up, which was under the Napoleon Empire, the they were shooting off the noses because they did not want to have the phenotypical African phenotypical nose on the statue. They just didn't want to see the face of a black man. Yeah, that's awesome, Sister Marguerite. Yes, they show you everything in the old museum, and you're not allowed to photograph it because again, then you'll have the one thing that they were having, and you know they get paid to have that Eurocentric script. They do, they do, and I laugh because when the tours were given that every African was cooking that response, rightfully so, because it was a very Eurocentric response. You got to remember, Egypt, 10% of Egypt, the controlling majority of Egypt, they're Greeks. They'll let you know that they're Greeks. They're Greeks and Romans. The other 90%, they're not. They're very, very Nubian. So they have to play to the Eurocentric elements. But what I Show Speed did was he was showing how Africa has those nuances and how those narratives are now being destroyed. Oh yeah, that would be one of the first things that they definitely need to do. So have a couple of different restoration projects, not for the sake of worshiping them, but for the sake of showing that this was actually history before the Europeans got there to destroy it. And as I stated, I've been to Egypt 6 times. 6 times. Spent time in Cairo and Alexandria. And what speed it's doing is truly remarkable because that's actually destroying a lot of the Eurocentric and in that case, heliocentric thoughts that they have had for over 2,000 years there in Cairo and throughout basically all of Egypt. And if you lose Egypt, and Egypt was already starting to be lost by the Eurocentric thought process, at least, I would say, at least 5, 6 years ago. This is now a big dagger because the loss is now through popularity. And to have a very popular African American, African diaspora and streamer go over there and expose those lies in front of people's faces via the cell phone or any other peripheral device, electronic peripheral device, is truly amazing. So, like I said, family, especially here on Q2A, I'm going to take some pages out of I Show Speed's book. Make sure to hit those subs, chat, like chat. Come on, chat. We can do it. Share chat. These are some very exciting times that we are looking at. Again, I'll be on Sunday, this Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can sign up for the Zoom. The Zoom, you can sign up for that at Q2UA.org. That's Q2A.org. Thank you again, family, for your support, and we will have more details regarding the land acquisition project. Shout out to Brother Fast Nickel for helping to put pieces together. He's been very instrumental as we've been working through some changes. And yes, he does know more than he lets on. He is definitely not dumb. He has to play his character. He has to play his routine because he's walking a very tight rope. But honestly, if you know a lot more than what you're letting on, then guess what you're gonna do? I would have done the same exact approach. Okay, I got to go over to China, Europe, but the goal is Africa. Now, now he is at the gym. Okay, he is at the gym. He just had to go down that yellow brick road. So with that said, family, I got to get up on out of here. Most high willing, I'll be back on next week. It's been fun. It's been exciting. And I can't wait to see all of the changes that continue to occur on the continent. So with that said, family, salama and be blessed.